And there it goes. All right, so first things first, budget and enrollment. So I'm going to go in kind of a in-depth piece about our budget. So let me share my screen so you can see it. And this is a lot of information. So just be kind of prepped for that. It's super tiny font, but this is our budget as of the 4th. It hasn't changed much since then, but this is what it looks like. So let me know. This is shorter. Can you see that okay?
Yes. Perfect.
All right. And Cassie, I think you can probably see that too. Let me just make the numbers just a little bit bigger. All right. So let me just kind of walk through this. If you have any questions, just shout out. I can't see you because I've got the screen in front of me. So if you have any questions, just let me know. So this number right here, this SBB, is a student-based budget. So that's how much money we get per pupil, which is a 8747 number. So this year, our total count number, our official student enrollment was 439. Currently, we're sitting about 440 or so. So we've been hovering about that all year. Next year, we will be funded for 466 students. Now, the district has a formula for how they create that number, and then we have a choice to accept it. And so we obviously accepted that number. And so then we are funded for the next school year for 466 students. What makes that difficult is those students haven't arrived yet, and so we have to kind of budget accordingly based on quote unquote butts in the seats of how many students are actually enrolled. And so then on this side, this kind of talks through kind of everything that we got. Since we're a fairly impacted school, if you look down here, we've got money based on our percentage of students that were free and reduced lunch, students who are on IEPs, students who have attendance issues, students who are have a high mobility rate, and then we have lots of kids, whether they're gifted or they're behind. We've got lots of extra money. So we ended up getting an extra just roughly $500,000, a little bit more than that, obviously, but roughly $500,000 just based on our student population. And then down here in this blue section is what's called non-discretionary. And so when you see these amounts in the middle, those are not actual salaries. Those are basically what costs our budget. So that includes benefits and time off and all that other fun excitement. Man, if I made $139,000, my life would be a lot easier than it is currently. And so then the rest of these are then down to what's basically FTE. So FTE is basically a person. So for example, where it says reading recovery literacy specialist, that 2.0 means we have 2 teachers. And then the classified positions, 0.88 is 1 person. So we can do the math, but you don't really need to. The only difference between these categories is you have to spend that money on these people. So we are given this money, so you have to have a principal to have the building. And so they give us that money, but we can't spend that money on like a first grade teacher. It has to be for a principal. All right, so as you can see right here, our budget is balanced out. And so moving through the grade levels, as you can kind of see here, I'm just kind of going, we're going to continue the same operating procedure we have now. We've got 3 classes per grade level, moving across the board, and then we have art, music, and PE. So that's essentially those pieces. Moving into the discretionary, which overly isn't important. Oh, actually, I can't get there because they've got a button. Oh, maybe I can hide it. There you go. Ah! Oh, hey, Lacey, how are you? I didn't know you were on there. Well, let me pull it back up. I lost it. Hold on, let me redo the budget. I hit it and now I can't find it. Okay. All right, this little sharing button is right over the top, so I can't get to the non-discretionary, but essentially the non-discretionary is this blue part here, and it's essentially the way it looks. So really, nothing about our programming changes from this year to next year. So that's essentially it for the budget. Do you guys have any questions on the budget? All right, pretty exciting. It kind of goes hand in hand with the school staffing. Our school staffing is not expected to change. We don't have any teachers at the moment leaving. We just have one of our special education providers. She's working in 2 schools. She wants to work in one, so she's going to join the other school. And that is really the only change that we currently have. So that's pretty straightforward. And it's the first time in a long time that we don't have anybody retiring or moving. The last couple of years, we've had either somebody moving out of state or somewhere else or retiring. So there you go. Next on the agenda is the curriculum update. I kept this on here from last year just to update because we never really got to finish out the year. So this school year, we started Ready Math, which is a component to the iReady that I'm sure that you guys are all familiar with based on all our quarantinings and remote learning. That's essentially the online curriculum that we have been using. And so that's been going really, really well. We've been very pleased with Ready Math. Our teachers really like it. For science, we've been using what's called STEM Scopes, which is not an online. They've got a lot of their resources are online, but most of the experiments are hands-on, which our teachers have liked that as well. And then finally, we've been doing benchmark phonics this year. And so that's been an area of need in our district for quite a long time with the phonics program. So we went with benchmark phonics this year, which is basically for kindergarten through 2nd grade. And what they do is essentially practice words and sight words and word blends and things like that, just to help with their language acquisition. Okay, so those are all going very well, and we will continue using all 3 of those next year. So there will be no changes there. We are contemplating a new literacy program, but again, that's in the contemplation stage as of right now because it's really expensive, and we're not sure what we want to do yet. So we're having conversations with our teacher leadership group currently. All right, moving right along. So CMAS, we are not sure if CMAS is going to happen this year or not. There has been talk that there is going to be some legislation introduced as soon as this week to not have state testing. And I have a feeling there's going to be some legislation introduced that they're going to have state testing. So we have started just planning for that. So we will be doing our CMAS testing. ELA, or English Language Arts, will be March 30th through April 1st. Math will be April 6th through the 8th. And then I guess this really only happens for you, Mrs. Shorter, but 5th grade does have science. They will be April 6th through the 8th as well. So 5th grade is the only ones that have to kind of double up there because they are the only ones that take science. We do not have to take social studies this year. And we're all keeping our fingers crossed that we don't have to take any state testing this year because we don't feel it's going to be a viable resource or accurate data. But that's just my opinion, and I don't write my own paycheck, so I'm just going to do what I'm told. All right, so from there, the other kind of large thing that's coming down the pipe towards us is a boundary change. And so you may or may not have seen some communication around that. I know, Mr. Shorter, you guys live in the Prairie Crossing area. Prairie Crossing is busting at the seams, which I'm sure you know that already. They've got 2 full grade levels out in mobiles, and so they are above capacity. And so they need to have some sort of plan to alleviate. Hi, Miss Liu. How are you? So they need to have some sort of plan to alleviate that overcrowding. And so I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, they started proposing different ideas in order to alleviate that pressure. One of the ideas was moving 6th grade out of the elementary, and the other one was redrawing the boundaries. Well, the 6th grade moving out of elementary was taken off of the table for this year, just because the cost and the ability to move quickly is difficult for that. Sierra is not prepared to host 6th grade at this time, so there's going to be some costly renovations involved in that, and they're not ready to move forward. So that's been taken off the table for this year. And if I had to be a betting person, I would say it's probably going to be 2 years before that could happen. But again, I don't make those decisions. As far as the boundary changes, originally we were selected to get a group of students. There's a neighborhood that is just north of us that's right by the Taco Bell. That's just a small pocket of homes that they have been bused to Prairie Crossing for years. They actually drive by our school every single day, which is kind of strange. Those students will technically become ours. So if a family lives in that area, they will have no more bus service to Prairie Crossing because their home school would then be us. But then obviously they could be grandfathered in because nobody wants to move a 5th or 6th grader who's been at Prairie Crossing for a long time here unless the family wants to. So that change most likely will be happening, but again, it's not 100% for sure. The other part that was supposed to come to us was a section off of Jordan Road in Stonegate. That was going to be roughly about 35, 40 families. However, the residents of Stonegate did not want to do that. They wanted to stay together as a community. The other part of Stonegate was slated to go to Mammoth Heights, and both communities pushed back and said they all kind of wanted to go to Pine Grove, which is the majority of Stonegate feeds into Pine Grove. And so we're not 100% sure on that area. So right now the district is in what's called canvassing, which is a fancy word for town hall. Since they can't do a town hall, they are putting out communications to those affected neighborhoods, essentially getting their feedback on how to proceed forward. Then they will compile those results and present to the board to make a decision in May. And so if those boundary changes were to happen, it's going to be way late in May, which isn't good for anybody, but I guess that's how the process works there. So we're only slated to get 13 extra kids. We were originally supposed to get close to 65, but since that neighborhood wanted to stay with Pine Grove, that dropped our numbers down to 13, and that's only speculated kids. So that's essentially the boundary change. And so it's kind of wait and see until May, and then we may get an influx of kids and we may not. So we'll have to just kind of wait and see on that. And then the other piece after that, I just put on there just as a note for reminder for SAC for 2021, 2022, and just whether or not that you guys want to continue your positions or not. So I just want to put that on a table, most likely discuss that next time since it's still only February and we have one more meeting after this. So if there's no other questions, then I will turn it over to Ashley, who looks like she's finished her lunch and is ready to talk about the teacher update.
Yes. So teachers have just been really instructing. We've been thankful to be back with students after winter break. We've had some professional learning. In January, we met with a Ready math coach who is continuing to support us as we use that resource that's new to us at our school this year. On Friday, for professional learning, teachers spent half of the day looking at standards and really using some district resources to map out, what have students mastered, what are they teaching right now, and what are they teaching in the coming months as teams. And then in the afternoon, they spent some time in a training about the science of reading. And so just to continue to get better and better at our practice of teaching kids to read. I know everyone's had fun Valentine celebrations going on. We have Hundreds Day coming up for a lot of our primary rooms. And so it's just busy as ever. I think you're muted.
So since this is shorter, you have some time before you have to go. Do you just want to give the Dac report just real quick? Or would you rather have us watch the video?
The video is pretty great. I did cue it up. No, I'm totally fine. So, oh my gosh. It was the same Dac meeting. I don't want to say that we always have, but you can only go so fast with these types of things. So there was a beautiful presentation about budget and about CMAS, just like you were saying, and how those decisions flow into the UIP and all of that fun. Our Jamboard was, I just love that Jamboard, was about what is super great with in-person, what is super great about remote, and then vice versa. What's not so great on both. And the responses were just, it's amazing. Like the number of responses that you get on there. So that's that. Nice and easy.
All right, and with us, our UIP is finished, but we're just kind of waiting to see kind of what the direction we want to go. It's really going to depend on CMAS, since we haven't taken CMAS in a couple, or we didn't take CMAS last year, and we haven't done UIP in a couple of years. It was kind of like fishing for straws, and so most likely at our next meeting, I'll review that because I'll have more information at that time. So, Lacey, I think you are up, but some people might call you Candace Whitaker, or Cadence Whitaker, which is even better.
Yeah, I don't know what was happening with my phone, so I'm on Cadence's iPad. So in PSP, we have yearbook sales going through the end of February. We recently had a restaurant night at Chick-fil-A, and we have another one coming up at Mod Pizza on March 2nd, and then the Chicken Shack March 30th and 31st all day. And so with those funds that we raise, we will be bringing in lunch or dinner for the teachers during teacher conference week, and then putting some towards teacher appreciation week in May, which we've started to kind of brainstorm things, you know, that PSP can do for them, but also ways to get like the whole school and the students more involved this year. For instance, like we want to do like a themed day each day of the week. You know, Monday is bring a card day. Tuesday is your support staff day. Christina sent out a great list of some ideas today. So we're starting to work on that already, just because we want to make it big, huge appreciation this year. The last couple grants that we've filled were some reading comprehension resources for 5th grade, and then we paid for half of 6th grade's outdoor ed that they were finally able to get scheduled. Hopefully they are still getting to go. What else we have coming up? Awards for the teachers that won the Apple Awards. And I think that's about it.
Yeah, Lacey's undercutting the PSP contribution to outdoor ed. We would not be able to go if it wasn't for PSP. Since the 6th grade students didn't get a chance to go when they were scheduled to go in September because the facility was closed down, outdoor ed came here and did kind of a modified kind of outdoor ed experience here in the neighborhood, which is really not the same, but they did have to pay for that experience. And so then we had an opportunity to go down to their facility for a couple of days. We can't spend the night, but just spend some time down there for 2 days. And again, at some additional cost, but without PSP's help, our students would not be able to afford it. So it was awesome that they paid for half, which would greatly reduce the overall cost of that. So now it's just coordinating vehicles, since there's no transportation provided by the district, which I think we have that all taken care of, and the students are going next Thursday and Friday, and they're pretty excited. Most of their stuff has been canceled this year, so this is going to be one of the few times that they're going to be able to actually follow through and get some stuff done. So we're pretty excited. So essentially, the only other topic that I wanted to bring up was just pretty much all we ever talk about now, which is just the COVID-19 and how that's affecting us. I shared yesterday in our PSP meeting that we've got probably, I would say, at least half of our staff, it might be a little bit less, but pretty close to half our staff has at least one shot of the vaccine. We've got a few, just very small amount that had their second shot. And most of our staff has something scheduled here in the next few weeks. The goal of the district, I think, is to try to get at least halfway done, at least everybody in the district with at least one shot by spring break. And just as far as Cherokee Trail goes, we're well on our way. So our teachers are very, very excited about that. What our world looks like post-vaccination, I have no idea. I don't think everybody's really thought about that yet, but it's the best news for us. That's really pretty much the biggest thing that's happening here is just those vaccinations coming through. All right, did anybody have any other questions or any other things coming up that's been pinging your radars?
I have a quick question about CMAS.
Yes.
Okay, so I've never opted my kids out of testing, but curious, I heard there's no ramifications for the students if they opt out, of course, but I heard that it could affect the school. Like, in what way would it hurt the school if too many kids opted out?
So if we have a large number of students opted out, then it just affects our data. And so, for example, if we have 400 and, let's say we have 200 kids that are slated to take it, but then we only have 150, then it just slides our data into low participation, which doesn't look great for us. But it doesn't have any lasting effects. The downside to CMAS is that becomes our report card, which gets published to the state and then gets published to the community. And so that's how we're quote unquote graded on how well we do. And if we have low participation, it's difficult for us to do really well and to show what we can do. Having said that, we have lots of families that opt out, and again, it's no ramification. We want to make sure that families have an opportunity to do what's best for them. But just know that that's would be the adverse effect for us, is we just most likely would have a low participation grade on our test results. And again, my fingers are crossed that we're not going to take it, because I don't know how it's going to even work to have, because if you think about state testing, you're going to try to have a same environment across the state. And you've got some schools that are in, some schools that are in person, some schools that are halfway in, halfway out. So I have no idea how that's going to look across the state. So it doesn't make any sense to me. But again, I don't write my own paychecks.
So would you mind talking to me a little bit about that? I've always been on the mindset of the more data you have about my kid that you can educate them accordingly, the happier I am, right? So I've always been a fan of testing, seeing where Jack is and what you need to do for that. Now, if CMAS isn't taking place, is there an in-school, I don't want to say alternative per se, but something to where we're still benchmarking these kiddos? Does that make sense?
Sure. So for us, we've got iReady is what does that for us, along with some other smaller pieces. So iReady is kind of our big state-approved assessment that we do 3 times a year. That's the diagnostic that we did at the beginning of the year. We did at winter, and we'll do again in the spring. And then also the students take a progress monitoring once a month, so we can do real-time tracking of what they're doing along with online lessons. On top of that, in literacy, we've got some of our own literacy assessments that we give to students, whether it's on a monthly basis or a weekly basis, just kind of depends. CMAS, the difference is it's a state test, so all students across the state would take that same test. And again, you're right, it's another data point. The only downside to that is it's not an actionable data point now, because we don't get the results until the following school year. And so for us, so if for Jack, for example, we would definitely have some information on where he was, but we don't have a whole lot of information about where he is, if that makes sense.
That helps so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Ashley, did I leave anything out?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay. Great questions. Any other questions?
Okay, I have one more, and it's probably a little more personal, but yeah. I think that it pertains to a lot of kids in the school, especially since Ashley's on here right now. So Cadence is doing really, really well. Like, board, I think, in kindergarten, and Ashley has sent home some extra work for her to do at home, which is great. And I've talked to Ms. Hegre, but it's hard for me to see like what is going on in the classroom besides what I see coming home. Are they doing things in the classroom to kind of, what I mean, like individualize? Like, is she getting those extra work in the classroom also? Like, I don't want her just to be sitting at school like so bored and then coming home and doing stuff that she really needs to work on. Does that make sense? I mean, I know that, and then it's different, like, because Devery's on the totally opposite end of the spectrum. Like, I know that she's getting the help that she needs, but the kids that maybe are ahead, are they getting the attention or help or work that they need? Does that make sense? I mean, I know there are different reading groups in the classroom, but then some of the stuff she brings home, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, teachers are differentiating based on all that data really that Josh talked about in reading and writing and math. And so a lot of that is happening through small groups. And then students within each grade level are also exposed to grade level content because the teacher has to ensure that they actually have mastered those standards for that level. And so students' experience at school will be a little bit of both, right? Some grade level content and then a lot of things that should be differentiated to meet them right where they are. And I just encourage you, if you continue to have questions or wonderings about what that looks like for your particular student and her particular grade and classroom, talk to that teacher, or you can connect with me and we can all talk about that together.
Okay, I assumed, and like I said, I've talked to Miss Hegre, and I mean, I know Talon has been there for years, and she always did really well, but I was just wondering, like, just making sure she's on the right path, and there's, like, a whole school plan.
Yep. We definitely, yeah, that's 100% Miss Jakubowski. She is not only our school's gifted and talented coordinator, she's also the feeder lead for gifted and talented as well. So we are very fortunate to have her on there. Any other questions you guys have? Those are great questions. Okay. All right. Well, it's so nice to see your smiling faces. Our fingers are crossed that at some point, if we get vaccinated, that you all can come back in the building and we can actually see your face, and we might actually have a personal conversation as opposed to some weird screen thing. I would really enjoy that. It's just such a strange environment, and it drives me nuts to see people just standing outside waiting for their children. They can't just like come in and hang out. It's just, yeah, it's weird. We'll be happy when it's all over. All right, from there, our next meeting is April 28th. Hopefully I'll be a little bit more organized and get out the agenda more than 24 hours in advance. And we can go from there. All right, you guys take care. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye.